Welcome to Peachtree Injury Talk with attorney Jordan Jewkes.
Hello and welcome to Peachtree Injury Talk with Jordan Jewkes. Jordan strives to give injured victims a voice and provide strong advocacy against an often broken system. I am your host, Kevin Rosenquist, and today's episode is all about how to choose the best injury attorney for your claim and what red flags you should watch out for. Jordan, welcome back.
Hey, thanks, Kevin. Glad to be here. Looking forward to chatting with you today.
Yeah, glad to have you. So let's start here. What are the most important qualities people should look for in a personal injury attorney?
I mean, that's a really good decision. And I think you have to consider, the importance of what you're going through. And, when someone gets injured and they may have to go through a trial process, they have to fight against the insurance company. You've got to go, you get one bite of that apple. And so you don't want to mess it up. So you want to go really with someone that you know will work hard. You want to go with someone that you can trust. And I think you want to go with someone that has experience and a track record doing and getting the results that I think you want. So yeah, you don't want to mess that up. It's an important decision.
And how important? I mean, obviously you're biased, but I know you well enough now to know that I trust you to be impartial. But how important is it to have someone who specializes in personal injury versus sort of a general practitioner?
Yeah, I mean, it's incredibly important. And obviously I'm biased on that, but there are just laws out there that, have been enacted to make it difficult to get a good result or to even bring a claim. And so you have to be, and even within the personal injury umbrella, there are a lot of cases that are very specific, like trucking wrecks, medical malpractice, injured by police or security or something like that, where it takes an added measure of expertise. And it's just risky to go with a generic attorney or a general practice attorney for an injury case, given all of the legal pitfalls that exist. There was a case I read about recently where an individual was injured by a truck driver and really had a permanent disabling injury. And they hired an attorney that I think they went to church with them, who was a business attorney. And they trusted this person, because they had a relationship with them. But that business attorney never really divulged that he didn't really have any experience doing this. And there, in that particular state, there were some real critical things that needed to be done. And one of those is always is what we call a statute of limitations, where if you don't settle a case, you have to file it. And here in Georgia, that's 2 years. There's always some things attached to that. But in this particular case, that attorney that severely injured person hired did not file the lawsuit in time. And when something like that happens, it is extremely hard, if not difficult, to undo that. Mm-hmm. And that person, who really had a very significant injury and a very significant claim in terms of just lifelong impact, money lost, all these types of things, their claim went away because they didn't hire the right attorney. And that's devastating. You feel bad for them, but the insurance company does not have to pay. And they were glad he hired that attorney. So really important to hire the right attorney for someone who's been experienced, someone that you trust, someone that's a good communicator that really has a good track record.
Technically, you can represent yourself, right?
Yeah, I mean, technically you can, but it's not recommended.
Why?
Yeah, let me say, I think what you're saying, Kevin, is someone doesn't need to have an attorney to pursue an injury claim. That's what you're saying, right?
Right.
Yeah. I thought you were saying me, Jordan, could represent myself. And yeah, sure. But yes, you're exactly right. Someone can technically go in and fight the insurance companies, gather all the evidence, and really go to court if they need to. And in some cases, I've had people that have called my office and said, "Hey, Jordan, can you represent me?" And I looked at their case, I talked to them, and I ultimately told them, "Hey, there's probably one or two things you can do on your own without legal counsel, and you'll be able to do everything I can do for you." But those are few and far between. And so, yes, technically it can happen. I've not seen it done successfully, at least not on a large scale before. I don't know many people that have the ability to really navigate that. We went to law school for 3 years to learn how to get to court and to go through that litigation process.
And that person watched some Law and Order and figured they could handle it.
Or read a lot of articles on Google or watched some videos on YouTube. In fact, I've had several people who've called me in litigation and have said, "Hey, I filed a lawsuit pro bono, as we call it, without an attorney, and now I'm lost. Can you help me?"
I screwed up. help.
Yeah. And those are really hard for us to get in there and to sort of undo things. I would say at a minimum, contact an attorney and at least get someone to show you the basic steps to do it, because it is rife with difficulty and obstacles.
What kind of questions should clients ask a potential attorney about their experience, their track record, their, how can they assess if they're going to be responsive and accessible during their case? Like, what kind of questions can help them?
Yeah, I mean, I think just as important question, Kevin, is who to ask the questions of. But yeah, if you're going to go have a consult with a personal injury attorney or talk to their staff, you want to ask them, hey, have you done this before? What sort of results have you gotten for our type of case? How long is this going to take? If we do end up filing, what case or what county are we going to be filing in? Have you been in that county before? Do you know the judges? Are you familiar with the area? How many cases like mine do you have? Those types of things. Hopefully, you know your attorney either by reputation or by name prior to hiring them. One thing that I think is becoming more prevalent, Kevin, in society or in community is attorneys that are on social media just nonstop, advertising. And you've never actually met that attorney. You've just seen their sort of 30-second reels or TikToks on social media. And they probably employ some competent attorneys. But if you've never actually spoken to that attorney, if that attorney themselves doesn't know what they're doing, be really careful that you go with someone under their umbrella or under their roof to be your attorney. A lot of those guys give great pitches, but don't really know what they're doing behind the scenes.
I can't think of any other type of attorney that you see advertised more than personal injury, right?
Yeah.
So you got a lot of different things. Oh yeah, I should hire that guy. But like, to your point, you don't really know anything about them. All you know is they have a good marketing budget.
Yeah, you're 100% right. And I think that raises one of the major concerns and really one of the great ills of our industry are attorneys that really just focus on advertising. And you drive through Atlanta, you drive through any major city in the nation, and you'll be inundated with billboards, radio advertisements, things hitting your Instagram. You got to be real careful on that. I'm not saying there aren't good attorneys who advertise, and
Sure,
that's a perfectly legal thing to do.
Absolutely.
But do you want the guy who's the biggest advertiser, or do you want the guy with the best results with the most satisfied clients?
What should clients understand about contingency fees and other potential costs?
Yeah. I mean, contingency fees have just been found to be the way that is very normalized in what we do. Contingency fee is when the attorney sets up the attorney and the client agree to payment of the attorney contingent or only on the client making recovery from the defendant or the insurance company. So in other words, if there's an agreement and typically it's 1/3, there's no big secret about that, where the insurance company, if there's a $10,000 payout, the attorney gets 1/3 of that. And typically it's in addition to their costs and expenses. And so that's what to expect. Now, you've probably heard some horror stories where, hey, my attorney got all the money. The client is also responsible to pay their own medical bills. And so I think a really good attorney will make sure that the client puts money in their pocket and their medical bills are paid out of the settlement, in addition to the attorney being paid. I think it gets really difficult when the attorney is the one collecting the money, getting paid, and the client isn't. And if that's something that you see on the reviews or people saying that, real clients saying that about that law firm, that's a huge red flag that the clients are walking away without any money.
Yeah, it's all going to the attorney and nothing in their pocket. And as we've talked about in other situations, or I'm sorry, on other episodes, there's a lot of situations where it's more than just the medical costs. There's the loss of work, there's the pain and suffering. There's a lot more that goes into it than just that. So you got to make sure you're getting your full compensation package.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And there's nothing more invaluable than being able to pick up the phone and have an honest conversation with your attorney, his staff members, her staff members, and to be able to make a plan going forward. And before you settle a case, you should have a good idea of maybe not what the exact numbers are going to be, but generally what's going to come into your pocket and what the medical bills are going to be. And sometimes the attorney's part of their job is to go talk to the doctors and say, hey, we are able to settle it for this amount. Can you reduce your fees to some amount or your medical bills? And sometimes there's some success with that as well.
What other red flags would you say there could be if you're interviewing an attorney, if you're talking to an attorney, if you're just looking them up online? What are some of the biggest things you think people should look for that would be a reason to avoid that person?
Well, I think reviews are really important, and what do other people say about them in the community? And so you can go to Google or Yelp or some other third-party sources to see what legitimate reviews are being done. And most people can scroll through reviews and see which ones are maybe fabricated versus the ones that are legitimate.
It's like looking at a restaurant, right? Like if you can tell which people are just disgruntled or
yes,
unreasonable.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Another thing that I would say is a major red flag is law firms that are offering significantly less fees than what is normal. And I warn people about that because, every once in a while there's a law firm that'll pop up that'll say, hey, we'll do this for 25%, or hey, we'll do this for 20% or less. There's a reason why 33% is so standard within the industry, because it takes a lot of effort, to have a firm that really knows what they're doing. It's not cheap. It's not something that just is a quick turnover. If you engage in a firm that is advertising for significantly less fees, you can almost guarantee that you're going to get significantly less service on the back end. And so I think the best thing to do is compare it to a doctor or a dentist. Do you search for the dentist or doctor who's going to do the surgery for the absolute lowest price? Or do you search for the doctor or dentist who's going to do the actual best job at fixing your body or fixing your tooth? And then work with them on the price if you need to. But you don't, cheapest when it comes to legal service is certainly not best. And I think, unfortunately, a lot of people buy into that.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, there's a lot of different things. You can have the cheapest, like you said, doctor, the cheapest mechanic, the cheapest, like any service thing. It's like, okay, yeah, but why are they the cheapest? Think about that for a second.
That's exactly right. And if you pull the curtains behind a company that is offering significantly less cost, it's usually because their processes aren't good, their people aren't qualified or trained, and they are paying them significantly less. Well, when people aren't compensated to do a job or compensated fairly, do you think they're doing a good job? In general, no. And so anyway, we see that a lot.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. Can you talk about the advantages of hiring a local attorney familiar with Georgia laws and courts as opposed to someone who may not have the same connection?
I think the advantage of hiring local attorneys, you see them at school, you see them at church, they're not going to run away with your money, right? And what I mean by that is there's someone that you can trust, and that if there's a problem, you go knock on their office door and say, hey, let's sit down and kind of figure out where this is going and what's going on. And frankly, you just know that they're an arm's length away, and you can talk to them if necessary. And the other thing that I think is good about local attorneys is they know the judges and they know the courtrooms like the back of their hands. And the several counties around our office, I know the judges, I know the courtrooms, we just know the ins and outs of it. We know what the juries tend to do and don't do. Now, that's not to say you can't bring in a big city attorney and have some success in a rural or a local area.
My Cousin Vinny approach?
Yeah, exactly. Which is a great movie, by the way. I love that
awesome movie. I love that movie.
But, typically, if you're not familiar with the county, you want someone local, you want to consult with someone down there who's familiar with the jurors and the judges and how the local rules, as we say, are play out.
What are some of the most common mistakes, other than maybe looking for the cheapest option or representing themselves? What are some other common mistakes that people make either when choosing an attorney or when looking to, start the process of a personal injury case?
Yeah, I think that probably the biggest mistake is never getting a communication from an attorney. Any attorney that signs your case you need to have contact with an attorney in that law firm. And sometimes some law firms are set up to where it's almost like a factory or a mill, where you have a low-level employee that just sort of pushes the paperwork and not a whole lot is done by the actual attorney on the file. And that's, I think, something you got to be really careful of, because the person handling your case shouldn't be a low-level employee. Not that they can't help on that process, but the person handling the case should really be a licensed attorney. And we get calls all the time from people who've kind of gone with these big firms and big cities, and they'll say, 6 months into the process, I've never even spoken to my attorney, which to me is just crazy. Got to have that personal touch.
At what point in the process should people really, pick an attorney, start the process of actually working with an attorney, as far as from the time that their crash happens or their accident, whatever it is? How soon and at what point do they need to get to you or someone else?
Yeah, it's never too soon. I'll say that. Obviously the most important thing after wreck is always to get the medical care you need and to make sure everyone is okay. But generally speaking, Kevin, I think the best way to answer that is the sooner the better. There are certain things that the attorney's not going to be able to help you out with, or that just will need to be done, particularly at the scene. But certainly I would say if you've been in a wreck and you're injured, within a week or so is certainly not too late to contact an attorney.
Okay. Sounds good. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for joining us on Peachtree Injury Talk with Jordan Jewkes. To connect with Jordan and his team, you can visit jewkesfirm.com, and please like and subscribe to our channel and leave us a review. We always appreciate it. Jordan, always appreciate your time. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.